So Lara, we're finally back to recording and doing our reactions on the American election. It's almost 10 days already, right?
Yep.
And right after the election, some people were asking, are you doing a reaction video and things like that? And I mean, we didn't plan for it because partially we want to see how it kind of play out, right? And now, so today we're going to do some reactions and some discussion about what has happened on election night. And then, of course, we want to talk about even Trump right now has become president-elect and naming all the different official and cabinet and causing a lot of reactions. And then we want to talk a little bit about the Malaysian reaction. And in fact, next week, we're going to have some of our friends here to talk about from the mainstream media perspective and also the influencer, the entertainment arena, because that's one of the area which was, I don't know if it's fair to say that, especially for Kamala Harris, getting so many celebrity endorsement and things like that and turn out to be not effective at all. So that's what we want to do today and next week. Now, Lara, let me begin by going back to the election night itself, right? And I think we can start by saying that we both kind of did our prediction the last episode.
Exactly.
And you say Trump will win 7 states. I said he will win 300 plus electoral college votes. I guess we're right in that instance. But one of the things which I said I think was not so correct would be I thought it would be a drawn out, because remember 2020, 2021 with Biden and Trump never conceded and all the way to inauguration. But were you surprised that the whole presidential election was settled 24 hours after the voting was closed?
No, actually, I felt like, because even earlier on, I think one of the prediction was that I do feel like they were going to get the results very, very soon. Because one, I think the mainstream media is really sort of like crumbling. I mean, especially on the credibility with the American public and things like that. It's almost like at the stage of no nonsense, sort of. And also maybe because the disparity is just overly huge,
Yep.
especially when you look at the polling industry. Because I think personally, I was like keen to see whether or not these polls are showing very accurate results, and especially like how the swing states are really, really starting to turn a bit more red for Trump. So I think that was that part that I do think possibly the results are going to be released like pretty soon. And also like the part where Kamala Harris just seems to be, I don't know like what's happening with her campaign. So I mean, now that you're like looking at news where the campaign is in deficit, but also there is that sort of like overconfident sort of aura, despite her not really getting that sort of, I mean, if you look back at 2020, she wasn't like the favorite pick. I mean, she was like losing out so early on in a presidential campaign and things like that. But I think the funniest thing was really how both Jill and Joe Biden, how they are reacting to this whole thing.
Actually, interesting that you mentioned that, because Joe Biden invited Donald Trump to White House, and yesterday he just went. And look at Joe Biden's face, right? He was beaming and he was like, you never seen him so happy before.
Exactly. I mean, like grinning face to face. And I just thought like Ben Shapiro was just like literally laughing at this whole thing, because he said Trump would be like the second happiest person in the room, because you have Joe Biden, who is the like literally the happiest person, and he was like being very, very gracious in like really just congratulating him and like just, hey, welcome back.
And that's why this sort of reminded me again. Remember when we did one episode to cover when Joe kind of decided to pull out, and we know the backstory. He was kind of pressured by Pelosi. He was pressured by Obama, and they went and tell him and say, if you don't step down, I don't know what they said to him, we're going to use the 25th Amendment or things like that against him. So reluctantly, he stepped down. But very quickly, I always remember this, he endorsed Kamala Harris on social media. And I think that kind of jammed out Obama's plan. Maybe they wanted somebody else to step in, Newsom or Michelle Obama, anyone other than Kamala, because Kamala, one of the funniest thing you have seen the video, right? And it's like a fake Donald Trump talking to Malaysian and say, Malaysian, I won. You shouldn't vote for Kamala because bad word is alamak. So
Yeah.
I was like, that's one of the funniest video. But you just get that kind of feeling that Joe kind of sabotaged the whole Democrat
Exactly.
by endorsing. And then the thing about celebrities, they're really not that smart, because when Joe Biden did that, everyone jumped on the bandwagon. Because you see, when you start the whole process of DEI, DEI, what does DEI stand for again?
Diversity,
diversity,
equity, and inclusivity.
Yeah, equity, inclusivity. So it's like looking at color people, looking at female representation. I mean, nothing wrong with color people, nothing wrong with female, but if you put people there because of their gender and because of their race, that's racism of the highest order. And I think even during his term, he kind of sometimes, talking about Joe Biden, casually mentioned that Kamala was his DEI appointment. And he himself said that, I need a vice president who is color and female, and even Kentucky Brown also in that category. So, but anyway, that's really how I felt when I saw his beaming face.
Yeah, also another meme that was like kind of trending was like Trump won by 1 vote. That's that. Then after that, who was that last person who voted? And then
Joe Biden.
You just put Joe Biden. So it
And
was
Joe
like,
Biden.
Exactly. So it's like literally so funny. I mean, the whole meme. And so I think really, I think because it was also very, very funny, because I was just hearing like some of the alternative medias and things like that. And really, they were literally just saying, also, we want to thank Joe Biden. It's like, of all the person that they were thanking, obviously you have like the Republican camps and things like that, but then Joe Biden is the name that is sort of frequently being mentioned, because I think he's actually kind of like a fighter in a lot of sense, because when he was being thrown under the bus by the whole Democratic Party and like Nancy Pelosi and things like that, and he literally just, you want to let's just bring it on, and all just
it's like his way of like he's like giving an F to the Democrat because of what they did to him. He was 40 years veteran in this business. He knows how to play, and that was his strength. But going back again to the whole election result, now I know the result is very clear already. But even the last few days, you still get some Congress seats not finalized yet. You have Arizona taking more than 1 week to count. And now we actually did a recording on one episode about the election cheating in US, but unfortunately some technical error and we can't publish that. But one of the persons that I know he has some interest, not like observing all the time, but even he was beginning to ask, just look at the number of votes that Biden took in 2020 and then compare with this round. It's like 10 million, 15 million votes discrepancy. The votes cannot just disappear, right? So one of the things that surprised me a little bit is that you have people who are maybe just casual observer. They are also saying that, wow, is there really cheating in 2020, So that is one thing that I'm not sure whether, because the whole premise of trying to invalidate Trump with January 6th, with the second impeachment, all the lawfare, it is related to him claiming that maybe there is an issue with the last election. And that was all he was saying, right? He was saying that, because of that, Vice President Pence, you're going to certify the elections. You should look at the evidence. The Supreme Court, whatever, should look at the evidence. And one of the most, I won't say shocking, but it is very difficult for courts to come out and scrutinize election results. It's not easy because their livelihood is on stake. So as far as I know, there's like a lot of legal challenges on the election, but very few to zero judges even want to hear. And I guess they're not comfortable with doing that. Because it may just open a whole can of worms. Now, Lara, I want to ask you, do you think now that Trump is secure, he's coming in, and all the bombastic cabinet announcements, we'll talk about that a bit later, do you think he will revisit the 2020 election issue?
Well, I think he has proven to be someone who is like gracious. I think his main goal probably would be like more like pardoning those like January 6 supposed offenders and things like that. So I think maybe his goal will be more shifted towards that, but really, really trying to like fix the system without actually being like the fascist or authoritarian that the media is trying to claim him to be.
Yep.
So I felt like he's probably gonna shift towards that sort of direction. So there is a bit of like almost like a grace or mercy that is being extended by him. So I felt like that would be more of his goal, because the goal this time around, you can see that he's like really, really more resolute in really wanting to clean out the deep state. So I think that's like a more urgent priority. So I mean, I kind of like remember what you were have been like I mean, in our just normal casual conversation, and you've been saying, if you have like only this much bullet, what are you gonna do? And literally, I mean, the timing is like running short. I mean, because this will be technically his last term, and 4 years is really going to be like really short, because I think even looking at like the new department that was being set up on government efficiency, I was very surprised that this was the only announcement, the appointment, that he mentioned that there is like a 2-year sort of time frame where he wanted like to literally just time it with 250th anniversary of American founding and things like that. So I mean not American founding, but then literally like that sort of the freedom and revolution, those sort of like spirit. I think he really, really knows what he is wanting to go for. So I think he's like gonna go for a longer run sort of like overhaul, rather than just focusing on 2020 election. But I think also brings me back to like another question that I do want to like put it to you, where do you reckon that if let's say Mike Pence would have certified the election, and maybe say for instance he really, really did become president, because I don't think the victory will be as glorious as now. So it's almost like it's not quite like a delayed sort of destiny, but I felt like the Americans were actually more ready for really, really, because I think having gone through that sort of hardship, and I guess the question would be, do you reckon that actually would he have won like more handsomely, you know? Because now he's like actually gaining even more support, even from, I mean, using the unity ticket and things like that. I mean, even more support, like, and really, I think a lot of people were very, very happy with RFK, Elon Musk, even like Joe Rogan jumping onto the wagon. So I guess that's like, do you reckon it's like a delayed sort of thing?
I mean, there's no question that by losing, or stolen, whatever you want to use, in 2020 and winning now, he is in a much better position to fundamentally reverse the things. And I think the other day, Charlie Kirk was just posting, right? He said the Overton, Overton, Overton or Overton window is moving. And I had to do a search. What does it mean, And it's actually referring to a scenario where there is an open, you can almost say it's like an open heaven like that. It's like there is an atmosphere where a lot of things, certain values are going to be acceptable to the majority of the people. So things like we need to deal with the deep state, we need to root out corruption from CIA, from DOJ. I think it's going to become, or FDA, RFK was just appointed as the Secretary of Health and Labor. So these kind of things will not sound like you're some conspiracy theories or some crazy nutcase, right? It's going to be like this Overton window. It's like people are going to accept it, but it's only going to be for a moment of time. It's not going to be forever. And if he had won in 2020, he wouldn't have this window at all.
Exactly.
He won't have the House, he won't have the Senate. He'll probably be a very lame duck kind of president. Now, people call him the lame duck because it's his final term, but look at the world response. Look at the cabinet announcement. Everyone, I mean, literally, I look at world news, nobody is misbehaving. Everyone is like thinking at the back of their head, what is Trump going to do? How is he going to react? Even in Malaysia, you see that. I think today, Tengku Zafrul just came out and say, in all, Zafrul, of course, very good, very diplomatic, and praising both sides and say we have to be neutral and things like that. He's very good at that. But basically, it paints the picture that everyone is waiting to see what Donald Trump is going to do. Because it's like you don't want to preempt him. You don't want to go too fast or too slow behind him. And that's the effect that he has around the world. So because of that, and also the mandate that he got, it is a very clear mandate.
Decisive.
I mean, all the swing state, it wasn't even close. It's like 120,000. I mean, compared to this is considered very comfortable margin in American politics.
Yeah, and he even got the popular vote as well.
So, I mean, just looking at, I think it's a good time for us to move to the second point which we want to talk about. It is really all the things that he has been doing. I mean, it's not even 20th of January. He's not even president yet. And here he is doing announcement here and there and causing all kind of manifestation, right? So this second point, I kind of just coined it, the impact on the world stage, because I think there's no question, right, that this election is a global election.
Yep.
When I say global, I don't mean by, people have, like Malaysian, we have no say in the result, but who wins or lose has impact over us directly. And but maybe just one more point before we talk about this, and we kind of discuss beforehand, right? Why the whole election was kind of sealed, like within 24 hours from the closing of ballot. And I think you have to thank UK Prime Minister, right? Because when the world leaders start, of course you get Oban, you got Nigel Farage, you got Javier Milei. These are his supporters. So if they congratulate him, it's like, yeah, what's the big deal? It's your pal, right? But then UK, very left, Labour Prime Minister, I think he's one of the first major foreign leader to call him president-elect. And when that's done, I think the mainstream media kind of gave up. They know at that time, Wisconsin is already kind of beyond Kamala's reach, but they refused to call it, because after Trump won Georgia and North Carolina, then it's like he just need to win one of the three, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And he was leading Wisconsin very comfortably. And you're not even counting Nevada and Arizona. So eventually when you call that, I think 264, right? It was just, they just kind of want to delay as much as they could. A bit like 2008, right? When Selangor, Penang, a few states shifted, EC just refused to announce official announcement until 5 or 6 a.m. So of course they don't have EC. The closest to EC is their AP, right? Associate Press or election desk and things like that. But anyway, let's come back to this second point. And this one is, oops, I just need to find my notes. Okay, so this second point about the world elections. So what do you think? I mean, like he has been announcing his cabinet, right? Is creating such a huge stir, right? I mean, we talk about the Overton. We know that is obviously available to him, but maybe let's talk a bit about some of the things that now, of course, I think the funniest is really the DOGE, right? Department of Government Efficiency, and Elon Musk just went on and created a handle already, and even gave himself a silver check, like official government, recognized by himself, being the owner of X. But anyway, what some of your reaction? I mean, of course, I mean, some of the names were not so familiar, and we had to research. But what's your feeling right now? I mean, your reaction when you look at, I mean, announcing of cabinet. I can't remember the president-elect ever do that so early. Can you recall?
No, not really. But I thought it was very, very interesting because of what he has said in Joe Rogan's show. And literally, he was just saying that because politicians have been vetted their whole life. And I mean, you rather have like someone who has been vetted.
Yep.
I mean, yes, they sort of like play by the rule book and things like that. But he also really, really had like different kind of respect for these politicians, because those who have been vetted, literally, and you sort of know you can't really do like a lot of hanky-panky things because you're going to be like voted out. So because of that, it sort of like shift my mindset towards like, because here in Malaysia, you always think of politicians, they are like just, like some guys who just want to like play some drama, those sort of things. But over there, they really do. I mean, although they are part of the establishment, there is still that sort of redeeming quality that that you can still see within them. And even just with him, how he's appointing all these people, it's almost like because 4 years have been like long enough of waiting, and he's like can't wait to just like literally just clean up the whole government. I mean, those where there is like, because he's like a businessman, so where there's like waste and those sort of things, inefficiency, he just want to like, let's just cut off all these things that are not bearing fruits.
And the other thing that is very interesting, and especially for our viewers and listeners who may not be familiar with the American system, is really their legislature, which is the law-making body. They call it Congress. Congress, you have the House, which is like the lower house. Then you have the Senate, the upper house. And they are really very, very separate from the executive. Whereas for us, it's kind of mixed, right? You have the 222 member of parliament, and all the cabinet member will come from them. And of course, you can kind of jumpstart some of the people by appointing them to be senator, but not in US. Like you want to get a senator, you want to get like Marco Rubio was nominated as Secretary of State, right? So he is a senator in Florida. He has to resign. Matt Gaetz, nominated as Attorney General, have to resign because you cannot be in a law-making body, the one that approved the purse and also doing the policy. So that's something very interesting. It's like the rule of conflict of interest rule is very, very strong. But of course, over the years, politicians have been there and just kind of, just have been. I mean, okay, maybe siphon is a. I mean, every time I look at the American politics, I just feel, in general, we say the Western, we call them the Amor, right?
Yep.
They have they will take money out. We call it corruption, but they say it's legal. You work with Australian company and things like that. You know how they work. It's actually exactly the same like here, only it's legal.
Yep.
It's legalized corruption. And that's one of the things that Trump wanted to change. So I think one of the things that, now of course we'll talk about Matt Gaetz in a while, because the other day I was just saying it's like a thermonuclear drop, right? But the one that really kind of interests me, and which I think will be very groundbreaking for a lot of people, is actually the Elon Musk and Vivek DOGE, right? Department of Government Efficiency. And here's the thing, I think this is so mind-blowing. They say each year, American government budget is around 6 to 7 trillion. It's like trillion is 12 right? And Elon Musk say, I think we can cut 3 trillion. It's like, I think everyone just went crazy because somebody's portion is being taken away. Bear in mind, this is a guy who came into Twitter, changed the name to X, and fired 80% of the people. And of course, don't forget, Donald Trump himself is a master of firing apprentice. You are fired. I mean, that's the thing we think. So that's my major reaction. What about you? What did you see from these appointments, or even some of the reaction from the world? Like suddenly I think, who was that? European Union say they might want to buy gas from US again. Among all these things, what is the one that really kind of capture your interest?
No, I think the part where he has been talking about like a peace through strength, I think that's really like the demonstration, especially with his selection of the cabinet. And you also have like someone who is like Pete Hegseth. That was like the most mind-blowing. I mean, I literally had to research like who was this guy,
I mean, he sounded familiar. We've seen his clip before.
Yeah.
He's more like an activist, right?
But he's also, I mean, I didn't realize that, he has like literally like a vast experience in the military and things like that. And he wrote his book and literally writing about cleaning up the military, where you have like a lot of DEI hires over the last few years. And really, really, I think that has been causing US military to like literally lose their standing in the world position. So the world major theater and things like that. So I thought it was like very, very interesting. I mean, even with his selection of the border czar as well.
Yep.
It's like mind-blowing because they because I heard one clip about the border czar, and it was so funny because they say, because I think this interviewer was just asking him, so are you like supportive? Like you sign off this bill, and are you like supportive of like family separation? So how do you not separate the family? And he said, well, it's easy. You just send the whole family away.
Yeah, deport them together.
Exactly.
So that was
So that's like mind blowing, because they say no, but people can be seeking asylum. But I didn't realize that actually the process of seeking asylum, you also have like a legal and illegal sort of way that they were literally just playing around. I think people don't realize the extent of how this immigration is really being weaponized, and that's really literally allowing like cartel from Mexico to just like sending people here on their free will and things like that, and literally you're paying off the cartel to be here so that you're sort of like quote unquote legal.
And I think that's one of the main reasons why the Latino shifted to Trump, because I was just listening to one of the ESPN guy. You know, he's a black dude, and you know, obviously, you know, he said he's friend with Trump, but he's going to vote for Kamala. You know, it's like the black people in the end, I think 85% still voted for Kamala. So I mean, that's another discussion altogether. But then he said this, and he was at The View. You know, The View once called the biggest peddler of misinformation in America. So he was there, and all the ladies is like, you know, wanting to hunt down the Latino and things like that. But then he was like, look, listen. He said, my Latino friend described it to me like this. It's like you are lining up, you know, to buy something, maybe ice cream. You're lining up to get something, and you waited for 1 hour, you waited for 2 hours, you waited for 3 hours, and then when it's almost your turn, suddenly 10 other people are put in front of you. That's how they view immigration. And I think the ladies of The View were like, oh. So it's like, it's like what happened at the border is really, it's no longer immigration, it's invasion. And I think go back to Homan again, and Homan, and he was just saying that, look, you know what's wrong with separation? He said, if I committed a crime today, I will be separated from my family. That's for legal citizens. And he said, if you seek for asylum, you're not even supposed to come into the country. That's why Trump had that remain in Mexico policy. You want to seek asylum, you go somewhere else. Like Australia, you want to seek asylum, you don't go into Australia first. You have to go to some PNG or some islands. There's a processing center. Do you qualify or not? It's the same. I mean, you want to seek asylum in Malaysia, I don't think they even allow you to come in. Probably send you back on the first boat. So it's like this open border kind of thing that has happened and already destroyed Europe. Basically, the voters this time are saying enough is enough. We're not accepting.
Yeah, I mean, even Malaysia was adopting that policy of like shooting on sight. I mean, especially during the I think the Vietnam War, right, where there's like
the
just
boats
too
coming
much
in, right?
refugees, and they're like, nope. I mean, even for Malaysia, I think people don't realize that how strong they are on the immigration policies, and really you don't allow anyone and everyone to just like come into your borders so easily, because then otherwise, how are you protecting your own citizens? So I think that's the part where people need to wrap their mind around it and not be so consumed by like the fake compassion where you just like, okay, let's just open up. I mean, you're not gonna open up to anyone that you don't know the credibility and then like just come stay in my house. I mean, you're not gonna do that. So why do that to your country, you know?
And definitely not at the expense of your original citizen. I think that is just common sense that is lost. And this election, I think the voters have said through their votes loud and clear, enough is enough. We want to secure the border. And, you know, talking about, I think Trump was like, with the appointment of the border czar and even Matt Gaetz as Attorney General and all this kind of thing, it shows that he was very serious about, you know, one of the things he said will be mass deportation. And you already say, you know, the caravan that has been coming sort of break out already. And in fact, I think all the discussion, all the warning is to encourage those of you who can leave now, you better leave now. Otherwise, post 20th of January, you know, it's going to be... Of course, he said he's going to start with the gang, the cartel, the criminals, but eventually, if you're found, I think it'll be zero tolerance for those who came in illegally. And unfortunately, if you stay there for 20, 30 years, some people really stay there for 20, 30 years, have their own business, have their own front shop. I mean, in what country would this be allowed?
No.
And anyway, let's move on to the final point I really want to talk about today. And now this will be a beginning of the discussions, and hopefully we'll continue again with our friend David Tians, and also getting Jared, who is into business, entertainment, and influencing kind of thing. It will be interesting to hear them. But I want to kind of talk about the Malaysian reaction. And we do have some reaction, right?
Yep.
And I mean, of course, Prime Minister did congratulate Trump. Very, very diplomatic kind of thing. And to say, Trump, I hope you will come in. And in fact, what PMX say is true. It's like coming and help to resolve the war in Gaza and things like that. Because under Trump's 4 year, you do not see a single major war on earth. And in fact, I was just seeing some of my friends, and it's like, I know they're not very political one and things like that. And they're just saying, with Trump victory, hopefully he can end the two wars. That's how people view him, that he is not an interventionist, but he is not really isolationist also, right? Because he and a lot of people are saying like Breitbart, Alex Marlow was saying that Trump seems more like Reagan, peace through strength.
Yep.
So with that, you still need to be able to say, show the fist, and like what he did the last time, right? You have a red button, but my red button is bigger than yours when he's talking to the North Korean leader, right? So you need to have strength, otherwise people will not take you seriously.
I think also a lot of people get triggered, but maybe a bit lesser this time around, where because he was just saying that I have a good relationship with Putin, I have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un.
Yep.
Like, I mean, if like in your normal mind, you'll be thinking, who is this guy like that's boasting about all this whole thing? But when you see that even these people really like show you that sort of respect and that sort of submission almost, that, I mean, and you really have that record of not having any war under your watch, and he was just able to take out the ISIS leader and things like that in such a like very, very promising amount of time. And so that sort of thing really demonstrated that, hey, we just need to know, I mean, you kind of just have to be a bit more tactical and then really just having that peace through strength sort of policy. So it's really like Donald Trump's policy. Yep,
Definitely. So looking at some of the reaction, right? I mean, let's look at mainstream media first, okay? And I mean, if you look at the American mainstream media or even Europe and British, like The Guardian and all those kind of thing, you see maybe a little bit of reflection, a little bit, not that much, but one example, I kind of, just one example would be from LA Times. And remember LA Times, before the elections, the owner did not allow the editorial board to make an endorsement. And later on, a lot of like Never Trumper publication like USA Today, they don't even do a recommendation or endorsement. So which is kind of interesting. But anyway, this LA Times, after that, some of the editors resign and things like that. And then let me just read. I mean, this is one of the small things that have been changing. Then I want to kind of talk about Malaysia mainstream media and what you have been seeing. So the owner of LA Times, what's his name? He's called Patrick Soon Xiong, right? And he posted an open letter, but it wasn't signed. Is it written by him? Nobody knows. But it seems to offer his position. And he said that, proud that we posted this letter from one of our readers on X. So he's trying to create shield. And he continued, when the president has won the vote of the majority of the Americans, then all voices must be heard. Opinions are just that. I will work towards making our paper, I think this is from him, and media fair and balanced so that all voices are heard and we can respectfully exchange every American's view from the left to right to center. Coming soon, a new editorial board. Trust in media is critical for a strong democracy. So he seems to acknowledge that it hasn't been balanced enough. But anyway, this is a small evidence of some shifting. Of course, on CNN, you have seen one of the personalities, Scott Jennings, has been just having tons of argument with his libtard colleague. But a lot of them are still like in denial, right? So let's talk a little bit about Malaysia one. I mean, we have some reaction, right? I mean, PMX is kind of okay and kind of diplomatic. But then some from the mainstream media, a few from Malaysia Kini was outright terrible, right? So what do you make of that? I mean, it's like, it's like, do you feel like there's a fundamental discord? It's like something doesn't, like, I mean, even you see some, who was that? Anthony Law was mentioning that. I mean, of course, in passing, right? He kind of say, oh, better learn. But learn from what? Learn. I kind of get the feeling that he was trying to say, oh, if you're not careful, you will vote someone like Trump as a leader. But that's totally missing the point. If you are not careful, you end up like Democrat. That should be the lesson. And I'm not quite sure why DAP cannot see it. But actually, I can tell you exactly why they cannot see that. Because many of them are basically idol worship Obama. That is the only way to put it. But this is one of the great things is that this time, Obama is really going to be driven out from Washington. Even Democrats cannot stand him anymore. Remember him when he was trying to lecture the black man? And the reaction was so terrible and say, Obama, you better get lost. So, but anyway, coming back to Malaysia, what do you think? I mean, you have read some article also, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I'm actually kind of glad that because I mean, actually PMX was also very, very quick to sort of like just congratulate.
And very diplomatic.
Exactly.
It was a proper recognition of election result.
But I just thought it was interesting because I was also reading like Al Jazeera that is like just collecting like basically a consolidation of all the world leaders' reaction and things like that. I mean,
Very benign, right?
Yeah, I mean, but you don't see Malaysia be mentioned, despite Malaysia being super pro-Palestinian over the last year. And I mean, it's almost like he's been put on a leash. I mean, our prime minister. That at least he's like, okay. I mean, because as a leader, you don't assume that your people are literally like dumb and just having to listen to the government in terms of what to do with, I mean, their daily lives and even their position on all these things. So I thought that was like kind of like a good sort of leash that is being put upon. I mean, at least you like literally controlling your tongue, not saying things that you shouldn't be saying and those sort of things. So I think that was like kind of interesting. I mean, even like Al Jazeera, that has been, I mean, definitely, I mean, all the leaders are like, Malaysia is trying to be like more Middle East than those who are in the Middle East. So I mean, even you have like the Prince, I mean, Turkey in
Saudi,
that is basically just like, Trump, you finish off what you needed to do. And even
not the crown prince, but one of the other member of the royal family.
Yeah, so I mean, with those sort of things, I think Malaysia should really like learn. I mean, even like what you were saying about DAP as well, that they should really look at it positively and just, I mean, in you trying to be overly relevant to the people by like encroaching their privacy and things like that, you may end up like being, I mean, given a taste of your own medicine because people are thinking, hey, you are encroaching too much into my boundaries and I don't want to know all this thing.
Let's talk a little bit about the Malaysian mainstream media. Now, of course, when it comes to American news, most of them will just copy and paste from Associated Press and things like that. So if you have a small publications, you don't have much view on the progressive movement, that will be it. But a publication like Malaysia Kini, for example, will pride itself as being progressive. You know, they are obviously progressive, so you will have some appreciation of what's happening there. And but then here's my main complaint, and I just look at a few. I mean, you look at I think Ong Kian Ming wrote once, I think P. Guna wrote once, I think Andrew Seah wrote once. A few a degree of harshness and praise. But one of the things that really gets me is I'm not sure if they truly lack an awareness and understanding of what's happening there. Because when you start to call Trump racist again, or fascist or whatever, then I think you are only reading the mainstream media. You're reading CNN, CNBC, those kind of things, you are not really getting the pulse of the majority of the people.
But do you reckon that, I mean, because even with CNN, they have been like somewhat mild. I mean,
Yep.
you want to throw shades at President-elect Trump, and yet they're like almost like
They got a
thinking
Scott
twice.
Jen in there.
Yeah,
and-
almost like thinking twice before you like even do another thing like that. You know, more
because
like,
they are losing a lot of viewers. They're losing a lot of people who supported. I mean, of course, CNN has been crap for a long time. Okay,
yeah, I mean, and even they are not renewing the contract of their anchor, you know. So I mean that is like so telling, and yet I felt like Malaysian media is almost like they are still somewhat like trying to be more mainstream media than the mainstream media. So I felt like there is that sort of breakaway that we do need to come into, because I felt like Malaysians can tend to be like almost like go big or go home sort of mentality. So they always want to like overplay. Then after that, only then we will come to a place of like hopefully we can find a balance. But it's almost like with all this sort of perception that they have been giving, that I'm not sure if they have really learned their lessons. You know, I mean, even Malaysia Kini, I mean, some of these contributors are almost making Malaysia Kini a bit like old wineskin already.
very much so, and I find it very interesting that because I mean, depending where you get the news, right? I mean, if it's from Insta, I don't think Malaysia Kini are they very active on
No.
ads? Not really on ads, but Facebook. And I'm always very surprised that the comments by the users are reveal that they are more informed, and they'll be like, oh, you know what looks so crap and things like that. So here's the thing I want to ask you, and I think we're going to end with this already. Do you think that it is really the mainstream media are not willing to acknowledge like the ascendancy of Trump, and that this is like a bit like bear song like that, you know, because you kind of destroy Kamala, you know, this is such a progressive candidate, you're destroying the legacy of Obama and things like that. And that's the thing that some people are saying that Obama's legacy will now be forever tied with Trump. It's that Trump's success means Obama's failure. The great unifier has become the great divider. But anyway, do you think there is that part that they don't want to acknowledge, or is it really, or is it really they don't understand?
I think it's a bit of both, but I felt like it's actually more of a formal in terms of like their unwillingness to accept, because it's almost
That
like
people
that,
have shifted to
Yes.
they really want they really become more nationalist because life's bad, and you know, we don't want this globalist crap anymore. We don't want this ESG, we don't want this DEI anymore. And that kind of alarmed the progressive world a lot.
Yeah, I think because like especially with PH government, they are more like they have always been wanting to portray themselves as the progressive
Yeah.
and things like that. So I think it's like shattering what ideals that they may have towards all this sort of utopian government, like almost like the perfectionist sort of government that they are wanting to have. So, but also I think it's because we are still in that, while there's a lot of great things that the British have left for us, there is also that sort of mindset that is a bit more pro-Western, almost like to the point of idolizing the British elite establishment sort of system. And because of that, I felt like we are still at that phase of trying to maneuver out of that so that we can come to that place of really like just embracing the good values, and then you just sort of like some of these things that are proven not to be like working, especially seeing how the UK election results are. I
Yep.
think that should really serve like a great lesson to Malaysia, especially because we are also using the same Westminster system. And then, I mean, and even seeing how Trump won so decisively, I think that should be like a lesson to Malaysia, and especially our PMX, if you're like seeking for another term and things like that, you should really come to that place of acknowledging and even be humble to acknowledge that, hey, maybe some of these elitist mindset don't work,
Yep.
because it's almost like us against the people. So that sort of mindset, I think at the end of the day, it will come and bite at the government, you know. So that sort
Correct.
of thing, I just felt like I think we're still at more of that rather than like I think definitely there's like ignorance, like not knowing the system of how it works in the United States. I mean, the Electoral College itself is so complicated. And even some of the appointment, how come some can just go through president and some you have to go through Congress appointment?
yeah.
I mean, those sort of things are complicated, but fundamentally, I think we need to come to that place of really just putting the nation interest first. So I think we are at that phase of like whether it's like benefiting, because we're still very much like in GLC sort of mode.
Yeah.
I mean, we just have to like really, really move away from affirmative action and really come into that place of like,
I mean, Malaysia, I think our leaders are addicted to big government. And I think that's one of the things that people may not fully appreciate is that when you look at, it's like you mentioned, people want to follow the West elite, but the British elite now is basically Marxist already. And, of course you say, oh, how can you say we are communists and things like that? But really, in terms of Marxists, and when you look at Obama's Democrat, it's the same. More rules, more regulation, taking away your rights. And so that's one of the things that I'm really hoping to see Trump's presidency is to create a contrast and say, look, if we give the power back to you, if we reduce the federal government by half, if Elon Musk and Vivek can bring down that spending from 70 to 3 trillion, it's like, look, yeah, maybe a bit more messy because people have to be responsible for your own life, but we don't want government to be our nanny, right?
yep.
So that's really the thing that I hope we will see. But of course, we're going to talk more about the reactions from the Malaysian side next week when we talk to David Tian and Jared. And it will be interesting to hear their point of view, because sometimes I feel like, we've kind of invested so much into
Yes.
this analysis the last 2.5 months, literally, right? And I mean, I'm still confident that we are impartial, but it's always good to hear. I mean, we have our desire, the theme for this show, decentralization,
Pursuit of happiness.
pursuit of happiness. That's what we want, right? Self-determination. And we're still always for that. And we realize that, look, Malaysia, we may not have the same foundation, we may not have the same tools that the American have, but we can still do something. And so I'm really looking forward to hear from our two friends next week, because I'm sure they have interesting ideas and insights also.
Yep.
So I think that's all the time we have for today. So until next time. So if you have anything you want to ask us, and because I know it's not easy to sometimes sift through the information, right? But you have any question, technical questions, how can you name all the portfolio and things like that? It's so very strange and things like that. Do drop us a question and we'll try our best to maybe address them in future episodes. All right, that's it for now. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.